lead us in a pledge of allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Call this regular meeting of the Exeter Town Council to order. Ask Madam Clerk to call the roll.
Cal Ellis.
Here.
Frankie Gregorio.
Here.
Mike Khan.
Here.
Manny Andrews.
Here.
Dan Patterson.
Here.
Thank you. First matter of business, public comment. I see first to sign the sheet is Mr. Greg Sear. Mr. Sear?
Yes, council members, can you hear me up there?
We can.
Instead of running around, I want to make a quick comment about, again, Greg Sear from 35 Estate Drive in Exeter. My wife and I, Stephanie, have lived there for approximately 10 years. I'm a little concerned about what's going on at the end of our street. Someone has put a road down there, Mr. Davis. Mr. Davis has taken down all the trees on town property. Used it for a road. I believe the town has put barriers up there to stop that, but since then, Mr. Davis has removed the barriers to continue bringing equipment down there. As a resident back there, I'd like to know what the town council is planning to do about it. Usually with these kind of things, you have permits first and abutters are notified. I don't want to get into the whole process and discussion about putting in solar panels and such back there, but I just want to let you know that several of our neighbors, if not all of our neighbors, are upset and would like to voice our displeasure with what's going on. That's it. 3 minutes.
And following you, Mr. Davis.
On March 1st, Stephen Matschek placed Jersey barriers blocking a section of Estate Drive and the underlying 50-foot right-of-way to my lot 36-2-2 without notice or justification. This is a public town road and public right-of-way. This is illegal, creates a public safety hazard, and wastes mine and town time and money. On March 7th, I received a cease and desist letter from Frank Gregorio, Town Council Vice President, hand-delivered by Stephen Matschek regarding use of the same road and right-of-way. This road and right-of-way have been used continuously since before my purchase of the lot in 1997, 22 years ago. I have an aerial photograph which predates my purchase and clearly shows the logging trails referenced in Rick Austin's letter. Before my purchase, Commonwealth survey flags extended to the end of the road at the 36-2-2 property line. Per state law 24-5-9, clearing for surveyors on public roads is permitted. Cove Code did this for Commonwealth, Rick did this for Dowdell Engineering using his skidder. The right-of-way has been cleared wider than a truck, intermittently at least since 1997. The 3 letters from Rick Austin, Hull Forest Products, and Andy Lemoy are just examples. I have a list of at least 100 people who have used that right-of-way approximately 1,200 times for foot traffic and vehicles, including planning board members and the current Exeter 1 fire chief. This includes my son's Boy Scout troop in spring 2009, gathering rocks for his Eagle Scout project at the library. John Ritchie, Gordon Shaw, a number of other adults and kids participated. The SUV, trailer, and tractor that were used are in the background. The next summer, my son delivered firewood to Mike Ferris, Pete Perskino, and others in the Estate Drive area. Some wood came from 3622 and was taken out through the Estate Drive access using the same truck, trailer, and SUV.
Incorrect.
The barriers weren't a problem over the winter, but now our work season has started. I have a building permit for a barn which shows the estate driveway. You're delaying my construction. I have a design and zoning certificate for a house. I can't get a building permit because the septic test requires a large excavator and I can't get it on site. There's a great deal of deadwood on the property, both standing and fallen. Cleanup is overdue, and the longer it waits, the greater hazard it creates for the town and neighboring Estate Drive properties. Matt Laprise can't get his equipment in to do the work. This is also a hazard for the public. The last planning board site walk conducted had about 25 attendees in wet, snowy, and slippery conditions. If anyone was injured, emergency vehicles would not have been able to reach them. I'm also now getting billed $750 per week in overdue equipment fees because Andy Lemoy's chipper can't be returned. I did not remove any Town of Exeter property from public property. I shifted one barrier to the side 4 feet. After I found it under a snowbank the Public Works Department had piled up, and I couldn't get my tractor onto my property. The barrier started on the right-of-way, it was still there after I moved it, and it is still there today. As for operating private equipment on public property, I agree, it is public property, but it's also a right-of-way and a road, and those are specifically designated higher uses. By Frank's standard, driving a car on any town road is also operating private equipment on public property. Neither town ordinance nor state law gives the town council or the public works director the authority to prohibit that, except in extremely limited emergency circumstances. Please remove the barriers, rescind the cease and desist, pay the overdue equipment fees due to your actions, and pay the fees for the fine gentlemen that are here in attendance for me tonight.
You're leaving your statement.
Yes.
Mr. Dowdell?
I'm a surveyor of record for ASA, if you all know that. We've been working for ASA on both the east side and the west side of Temple Brook for the last 10 years or so, and have used that access for our survey crew to get in, of course, park at the end of the pavement. We've researched it, and the land was platted directly to our property line, 51.90 of legal frontage along our property, AP 36, block 2, lot 2. Happy to hand the markup out of the, this is the recorded plat, and we feel that we need this, these barriers removed for adequate access to build the barn and the house that Ace is working on. There's no, as far as we can find, there's no restriction on the use of that 50-foot wide right-of-way to our property. That's it.
Mr. Howe?
Hi, good evening, council, Mr. Muzak. My name is James Howe, attorney at the offices in South Kingstown, at 36 South County Commons Way, on behalf of Mr. Davis. As you're probably aware, the planning board sought to conduct a meeting about a week or so ago relative to the master plan. Awaiting that decision, I'd like to just address a few things relative to tonight, most specifically to the cease and desist. My client, through a Access to Public Records Act, has requested the town any information relative to the composition of the meeting, which was called, upon which the action of Mr. DiGregorio was taken, that specific letter that Mr. Davis has referenced. The response from the town is that there was no such meeting. In light of that, we question whether the authority was actually in Mr. DiGregorio to act in the manner that he did. Our records, and the records here in this town, clearly show that the town did accept this state drive as a town road in 2001, and there are numerous documents in the town records that my client has sought access to, not only through APRA requests, but also through just his own research here at the town, that clearly show that this road has been designated as a town road, accepted as a town road. We believe that the actions of Mr. DiGregorio are outside of his authority, and certainly outside of the council's authority in light of the long-standing history of accepting this road as a town road. We would therefore request, in light of Mr. Davis's comments here today and Mr. Dowdell's comments, that the barriers be removed to allow Mr. Davis access to the property. We're fully aware that the plan for use of the property, at least in part, vis-a-vis the solar panels, if you will, is certainly subject to other processes before the town, and we will certainly go forward and do that. And just awaiting for a decision from the planning board to be recorded in order to take that next step. However, relative to what is before us now, what we perceive to be before us, the cease and desist is outside the authority of Mr. DiGregorio, outside the authority of the board, the council is constituted. We ask that the barriers be removed to allow Mr. Davis access to his property. Thank you.
Where's my chair?
And it's your turn, Ted.
Oh, I love it. I'll come up here.
That way maybe I'll get on the camera. Last month, I had written a letter to the town council, and at the request basically of President Ellis. But unfortunately, he wasn't here. Had he been here, it would have put him in a position where he could have pulled the letter and made the comments to the whole thing. Because he was not here, now I have the opportunity to present my case and get response, public comment. Dear President Ellis, this is a response to the letter I submitted to you on February 4th, Town Council meeting. I found it necessary to inform the people in attendance that we have no respect for each other. Once again, you found it necessary to speak to me. I also find interesting that you found it necessary to bring up our past relations. I must have quite an effect on you. I say this, the statement you made. I found extremely interesting was that one, you were defending the actions of the town planner when she addressed me directly. I noticed that you vigorously shaking my head. And this goes back to February 4th meeting on YouTube at 1.10, an hour and 10 minutes. Do I have such an effect on you, Mr. Ellis, that you constantly are watching me? The following was actually said by the planner of the January Town Council meeting. I asked Mr. Natalie, this is what she said, I asked Mr. if he's interested in the comprehensive plan, please come to our town planning meeting. He has never been to one, she denied. Planning meeting, please come to our planning meeting. He has never went to one. He has never been in my office to discuss what we are actually doing. I should have to. So I would welcome him to join us, and I agree with this, to be part of the discussion. January 7th, 2009, YouTube 1213. The first thing must be said that the planner did report correctly, I'm agreeing with her, that she invited me to attend upon meeting if I wish to be informed of the progress of the planning meeting. Now I stated, she made an above statement and addressed me and turned to me directly. I cannot fire or verify this. She is not shown on YouTube. But if I could request a tape made by Green Development, I would have it. In her statement, she said, I never attend a planning board meeting and never gave her office, and never been to her office. How does she know I never been to a planning board meeting? Is she taking attendance? Yes, I never ever in her office. In 25 years, I've attended town council meetings. I read it, so, bear with me. Meetings. It was never allowed for anyone to address the ordinance unless addressed by the town council president. Apparently you, as town council president, this no longer applies. In all of my years attending these meetings, I've always relied on the town council to provide me with information on important matters in the town. Now it seems that a resident wants information on an important matter to the town, they can no longer reply on the town council. If it has to do with zoning, planning, or treasurer, or public works, or any other department, we must go directly. I would recommend that the new town council take a look at how it conducts its meetings. And you, Mr. Ellis, pay more attention to running the meetings properly and less time watching meetings. I would also like to thank Mr. DiGregorio for the fantastic job he did at the last town council meeting, bringing it off in an hour and a half. Mr. Ellis, You are nothing but trouble to this town. And you can't respond to it. Think about Chuck. You can't do it, just suck it all up. He put that meeting through in an hour and a half. You know, I also resent the fact how you tried to present me as an adversary. Back in, think about Chuck, back in 1992, you attacked me originally when I moved to this town. And you have attacked me over and over again. There was a time when I asked my wife to do something for you, and you attacked her. Personally, I think your character needs a little reconstruction. So you can't respond. Thank you very much.
That was the end of the list. I'd be happy to continue, but that was the end of the public comment. There'll be another one next month, I'm sure.
Oh, there will be.
Of course, Ted.
And you will have your also responses about, as you say, Ted is Ted. Well, you know what? Calvin is Calvin.
Got it. If we can continue, the next item of business is the acknowledgements and announcements. Now, actually, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and there are 7 announcements tonight, which means this is going to take just a little bit longer than it did in March. But I mean, these are important. So you and me only had a couple last month, I got several. So I'll try to read them as quickly as I can so that we can proceed. First has to do with Exeter dog licensing. And these licenses are due annually from April 1st to June 1st. $6 fine after June 1st, $6 per license, plus $25 late fee per license. These can be obtained at the Exeter Animal Shelter or at the Exeter Town Clerk's office. And by the way, there are copies of the agenda, we should have told you initially. There are a few copies left, should anybody wish to have a copy. There's a rabies clinic that's been scheduled for the Exeter Animal Shelter on Sunday, April 7th. Next Sunday, 10 a.m. to 1 p.m., $12, cash only. Current rabies certificate is required. Leashes are required for dogs, carriers, and carriers are required for cats. Now we speak to some financial issues. Exeter West Greenwich School District will conduct its all-day referendum here next Monday from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. here in the council chambers, as I said. And I just want to give you figures because I think it's important since we have so little press, local press. This year, this request coming up that you will vote on next Monday, Exeter shares $12,221,768. That's the Exeter share of a larger budget. It represents an increase over this current fiscal year for the school district of $135,854, which represents an increase of 1.12%. Next, let me speak to the Exeter Fire District annual budget meeting, which will be held a week from this Wednesday. That's Wednesday, April 10th, at the high school auditorium. And for information purposes, their budget request this year from the taxpayers will be $1,464,331. That represents an increase of 3.54% for the fire district over this year's current budget. I don't say this to prolong the meeting. I say it as a public service because I think people should at least be aware of those figures. There'll be a public hearing looking ahead on our fiscal budget Tuesday, May 7th, here in the council chambers at 7 p.m. That budget is a work in progress now as we continue to meet. And finally, just to be advised, because we'll be speaking about this for the next month or more, The financial town meeting will be held Tuesday, June 11th at 7 o'clock in the high school auditorium. And then finally, I just want to add an announcement regarding the Wood, Pawcatuck, Wild, and Scenic Rivers designation. And that took place, a couple of weeks ago, but this is an invitation. We're all being invited to a celebration of the Wild and Scenic designation of the Wood, Pawcatuck watershed rivers. And this is going to be held 1 week from today, Monday, April 8th, start time 10:30. More information is available here at Town Hall, but it will be at the Wood River access in the Arcadia management area. So conservationists, this was quite a celebration, it will be. There's been notice that put out that dignitaries will be present, and this was a federal piece of legislation that the president signed into law. That being said, we move to item number 8. Unless, I'm sorry, the other members of the council have anything that they'd like to add? Thank you. Item number 8, number 5, is the approval of the agenda order. I would like to make one amendment to our agenda. I would ask if we could have the solicitor make his report to us following the public hearings that would be prior to the new business items. I'd like to call on the solicitor for his monthly report. Are there any other changes that anyone wishes to make in the agenda order? Hearing none, I'd ask for a motion to be approved as amended.
Motion so moved.
Seconded.
Thank you. Motion is made and seconded. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So voted. Item 6 is the approval of the consent agenda. First, under reports, I personally would like to remove the assessor's report and the Land Trust Preservation Trust Committee's report. Are there other reports that anyone wishes to pull? Regarding communications, there are 6 communications, as I count, that relate to appointments that probably will be made this evening. In addition to those 6, I would like to also remove items 24 and 29. Other members of the council? Frank?
I have none.
Manny?
No, thank you.
And Dan?
25.
Others, Dan?
Number 25, all the other ones I was gonna pull.
Others, okay. Regarding council minutes, I'm gonna ask that we remove those from the consent agenda and address those immediately following this item, since there are several of us that were absent for several different meetings and work sessions. Madam Clerk, included on the consent agenda, a series of license renewals, kennels, hawkers, etc. Can you update us on any that we might need to remove?
All the kennel license renewals, class 1 and class 2 are all set. They've submitted all the requirements. H1 has not submitted an application. At
So
Walker's license.
we will remove H1 then from the consent agenda, please.
Number 2, Warren Philippi is all set. Number 3, Bonnie Caldwell, all set. And number 4 has submitted the application but hasn't submitted all requirements.
Would you think we probably should remove that
Yeah.
consent because you may be missing important.
Last year, you approved that license, subject to them providing certain requirements. They never provided when the license was never issued, but they have reapplied.
I think we should remove that from the consent agenda.
And Dell's Lemonade did not submit an application.
Remove item I1 from the consent agenda. Thank you, Madam Clerk.
You're welcome.
I'll move that we approve the consent agenda with the amendments that have been articulated here for the record. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion is made and seconded. Discussion, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, so voted. Could we please address the minutes that we removed so that those can be taken care of before we move on? All of us were present for items 1 and 2. I'm back on page 3 now of the agenda. So I would move that we approve the minutes of the regular council meeting of February 4th and the executive session that occurred that same evening. Is there a second?
Seconded.
Motion is made and seconded. Discussion, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, so voted. Items 3 and 4, neither Dan Patterson nor I were present that evening, so I would ask for a motion that those be approved.
I'll make a motion to approve the March 4th regular meeting and executive session.
And a second, please?
Second.
Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
I will abstain.
I'll
And-
abstain also.
Mr. Patterson abstains as well. So voted. Item number 5, the council work session of March 11th. 4 of us were present. Mr. Khan was not. So I'll move we approve those work session minutes.
Seconded.
Motion is made and seconded. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and an abstention. Abstention from Mr. Khan. Items 6, 7, and 8. Those were meetings at March 19th, special meeting, executive session, a council work session. Dan, you were
I wasn't here.
absent. So I will move that those minutes be approved. Is there a second?
Seconded.
In discussion, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and an abstention from Dan, correct?
Yep.
Thank you. There's a council work session held on March 25th. All of us were present. Anyone care to make that motion? to
I'll move
approve?
that we approve those
Thank you.
minutes.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion is made and seconded to approve those work session minutes. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, so voted. That was March 25th? I thought we took care of that. Did we not?
You took care of both of them?
That was the last vote we took.
Okay.
We're moving now to item 7, number 7 on the agenda. 3 vacancies that continue to be listed. I think we'll be discussing A3 later this evening. We have no resignations, Madam Clerk,
We do not.
regarding appointments. Number 1 on the list is the town constable. There is a letter of interest. Would anyone care to make a motion?
I move that we approve the letter of interest. Was that Mr. Miller?
Yes, Phil,
Reappointment.
reappointment of Mr. Miller. Is there a second to that motion? Motion is made and seconded. Discussion. I would only say thank you to Scope for continuing to serve the town. Yeah, later. Oh, I thought we were just removing those. Sorry, sidebar on protocol and procedure. Let's continue with this section and then we'll revisit several items that, I'm trying to move it along, you know, but we have to take care of business. There's and did I call for a vote on that? Yes, did you vote on that?
Yes.
Thank you. Second item, special constable. We did have a letter of interest from Mr. Tom Allen for a reappointment. Is there a motion for
I'll
Mr.
make a
Allen?
move, I'll make a motion to reappoint.
Is there a
Seconded.
second? Motion is made and seconded. Under discussion, could I also add for the record that we received correspondence from Town Sergeant Donovan indicated support and encouraged for those two gentlemen and asked that we would reappoint them. He also asked us, let's vote on that. Those in favor of that motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, so voted. Mr. Donovan also made a request of us that we continue to post for that second special constable position. He asked that we continue to post through the end of May. I would make that a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion is made and seconded that we continue to post for a special constable position. Discussion. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, so voted. Regarding number 2, the juvenile hearing board member, I believe that you as a council forwarded a resume to the juvenile hearing board. I understand from Madam Clerk that they may be able to respond to us by next month. So we'll move on to number 3. We have Library Board of Trustees. There are 2 missing from the board. We did have a letter of interest from a Mr. Ben Elcombe. You've reviewed the letter. You have a motion that you wish to make regarding Mr. Elcombe.
I'll move that we appoint Mr. Elcombe to the Library Board of Trustees.
Motion is made and seconded that Ben Elcombe be appointed to that vacancy in the library board. Discussion, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, so voted. It's come to my attention that our council assistant has expressed interest in sitting on the board, at least on an interim basis. I did not read that's, here it is.
Yes. I'll make a motion that you approve Ken Finley for the position.
I will
Is there a
second that
second?
motion.
I accept the motion and the second, and I think, well, I haven't read, but Ken and I, after one of the previous meetings, said, he might help, he might be able to help. He sits on the state library board, which I bet you've indicated here. You said you were gonna present us with a letter, plus a resume.
Can I tell Mama that?
We're not finished, it hasn't been approved yet.
Let me know.
But once I conduct that part of the meeting, which I'm sure I won't do very well, but I'm gonna do my best to.
But you know how much I love my wife.
I hope so.
I do.
But we won't, never mind on that one. This letter is addressed to me, given that Ted, did you hear that, Ted? I called him Ted.
Well, I
Given
don't
that,
mind
no
that.
comment.
He's
no
a good-looking guy.
Yeah, well, okay, we won't go there. Given that Ken has been assisting the council for years, I appreciate this, Ken, and I know it prolongs the meeting, forgive me, but Ken's been helping for a long time in a variety of ways. I'm going to read this letter publicly. Please accept this letter and attached resume as indication of my interest in being appointed to the vacant position on the Exeter Library Board of Trustees. Due to the difficulty in identifying community members willing to volunteer, I'm more than willing to step forward in support of the library and other members of the board. And just let me say parenthetically, this position has been posted since January. So we have February, March, we have had one person come forward. As you know, I was part of the initial planning of the library, including working with the library site search committee, and more significantly, was responsible for opening up the line of communications with the initial funders of the facility. Since 2009, I've been appointed by 2 governors to serve on the Library Board of Rhode Island and have volunteered to serve on the Library Construction Reimbursement Regulations Review Committee, Appeals Committee, Institution Standards Review Committee, and Laurie Grant Review Committee for this board. It appears you've been pretty active, Ken. Additionally, in 2016, I was appointed by the governor to the Workforce Partnership of Greater Rhode Island Board of Directors, and have served on the Employment for Individuals with Disabilities Committee and One Stop Provider RFP Development Committee. I believe the skills and knowledge gained as a public administrator will help me provide support for the town's library. My education includes master level study of public policy and procedures, administrative law, labor relations, and personnel policy administrations. I have also participated in numerous seminars and workshops, and I plan to pursue additional education to enhance my professional growth as a public administrator. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact me anytime. You know, I hadn't read this. He walked in and handed this to me. He said he'd bring us a letter. I just want to comment. I'm glad I took the opportunity to read it. Folks like you need to know that somebody like Ken helps us. Ken and Ted, rather, you should be especially happy to know that somebody like him.
He is one of my favorite people.
Isn't he the best? So-
He's the best, I
so
agree.
If we surround ourselves with the right people,
I
hopefully
agree.
we'll do the right jobs and do them well. So Ken, thank you. Do you want to add anything to that?
Oh, I just see the vacancy and his needs and his walk with God and I'm going to step forward.
I thank you.
And you think Ted's a great guy?
Perfect person. You don't go to the board meetings, do you? You take attendance.
No, my wife wants me nowhere near her.
I believe there was a motion on the floor.
There was.
And without further discussion, I'll ask those in favor of the motion to say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So voted. Thank you, Ken.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Regarding item 4, the Exeter Rural Land Preservation Trust Committee, as in the other cases, letters are sent to the current members. It's also posted in the event that those members do not wish to reapply. However, there are 2 people up for consideration who did send us letters of interest, and we had no others, actually. So I'd entertain a motion to reappoint those 2 folks.
I'll second that motion.
Oh, it's named Janelle Bond and John Bradley. And there's a motion to reappoint, and there's a second.
I'd
Is
just
it,
like to say,
Please.
liaison to the land trust, that I find that going to their meetings, it's a very active committee, a very competent committee, and doing an excellent job. We did submit a report to the council.
Which is why I wanted to remove it, because it needs, people need to know what's happening.
They listed their accomplishments in 2018, which I would, again, it's a rather long list, and a very comprehensive. They're covering a lot of ground because they're trying to locate and preserve some of the open spaces and forest lands in Exeter. They also have a very ambitious program to get donations to the town in terms of land and in terms of money to help them fund their operations. And I think these 2 people are excellent to point them back to the trust.
Is there any discussion of that motion? The further discussion, rather? Hearing none, those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So voted. Before we proceed to the public hearings, I'd like to just back up to the consent agenda and address several items, 3 as I see, whose applications we removed from that consent agenda. Back to hawker's license, item number 1. I would suggest we perhaps inform the applicant that no action is taken, and we will revisit this application in May. And that would be my motion. Is there a second? Discussion? Madam Clerk, does that make sense? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So voted. And you'll see on the following page, 2 applicants, one for a hawker's license, one for a peddler's license. if they haven't come forward, in terms of, I'm thinking of item I1, perhaps they're no longer pursuing, or do you think they are?
No, I sent them a letter, I called them, but I could send them the same letter as you're sending,
And just
No
think,
response?
on neither of them. So I can send the same letter to
well, I would say just give
the
them
same opportunity.
another chance. I mean, this lemonade person, I guess, has been doing this for several years, I think, but things change, I'm sure. So why don't I move that Madam Clerk send letters to those two applicants indicating that we will place them on our May agenda at that time if they don't follow through, they don't follow
And
through.
remove them from the agenda
Exactly,
at that point.
exactly. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Discussion, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, so voted. Move to section 8 of the agenda, that's public hearings. I'm just getting my. It's right in here somewhere. Stormwater area. First matter of business is the annual report of the Stormwater Management Program here in Exeter. Now, we do have to conduct a public hearing on this report, so I ask for a motion to open the public hearing.
I move that we open the public hearing.
I'll second.
There's a second. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So voted. Well, there's a cover sheet here. Perhaps I could read it for the record. To the Exeter Town Council, dear councilors, each year the town is required to produce an annual report on the status of implementing the town's stormwater management plan, which is attached. The report was finished and mailed to DEM on time for the March 10th deadline. There is a requirement for public hearing for the April council meeting. I will be in attendance to answer questions. I like the last part. No action is required on the part of the council. Simply note that the report is available to the public in the clerk's office and the Public Works office. And this is signed by Stephen Matchek, Director of Public Works. This is routine, this is pro forma, we do this regularly. We don't have a lot of stormwater management. Is that safe to say, Steve? We have some. You report on what needs to be reported.
Correct.
Any questions of Mr. Matchek? Hearing none, you indicate we should approve this report? Okay. So I think we could do that following the public hearing. If there's no comment, otherwise, but at the hearing, then on the hearing, please, then I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Motion is made and seconded to close the public hearing. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, so voted. With regard to this stormwater annual report, I will move that the report be approved. Is there a second?
Seconded.
Motion is made and seconded. Discussion, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, so voted. Thank you, Steve, for preparing the report and bringing it to our attention, as we are required, as you are required. Second item up for public hearing this evening. It's a proposed amendment to the Exeter Code of Ordinances, Appendix A, zoning Article 1, Administration Procedures, Section 1.3.E, General Provisions, Variances in Section 1.3.F, General Provisions, Special Use Permits. There are a couple of copies left up here. I'll move that the public hearing be open.
Seconded.
Motion is made and seconded to open the public hearing. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So voted. Opposed? Oh, anybody, I'm sorry. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So voted. I am trying to rush this, folks, because I know how lengthy these meetings can be. Thanks for taking it lightly, you know, this is kind of what it is. Just moving ahead. This matter is a matter that was brought to our attention, I believe, in January. The zoning board recommended that the zoning ordinance be modified into two different sections. And we, as a council, referred this matter to the planning board as required by statute. And the planning board did respond, and thus we are here at a public hearing to make a couple of modifications. Let me just point these out to you. I think by ordinance, by charter, by council bylaws, these are to be read. I'm only gonna point out that two sections, language is not changing, but two sections are being added. And these have to do with the expiration of zoning permits that have been granted, and there has not been a closure on those, and the zoning board recognized a need, and thus came to us. I'm just gonna read for the record regarding expiration. And this is an amendment to section Article 1, Section 1.3.E, General Provisions. Following Section E is a new section they recommend that be added, titled Expiration. Now I read, a dimensional variance granted under this section shall expire within 1 year after the date of the zoning board approval, unless the applicant obtains a building permit. If no building permit is required, then the applicant must exercise the permission granted within 1 year. A use variance granted under this section shall expire 1 year after the zoning board approval, unless the applicant has actually put the subject property to said use, or, if required, has obtained a building permit in connection with said use. The zoning board of review may approve a single 1 year extension for a dimensional or use variance granted under this section, provided the applicant submits a request for such extension to the clerk in writing prior to the original expiration date and pays the required administrative fee. The board may approve a timely submitted request for an extension by a majority vote. The other language, the other paragraph added is virtually similar, if not word for word identical. I'm not gonna read that for the record in the interest of time, but therein explains or identifies the amendments under consideration. Does the council, wish to speak to this proposal before we open it up for the public?
I think this amendment is just to help clarify and make clear the conditions under which special use permits are vested and then expired. And I think it's a good move to clarify that circumstance.
Yeah, and my understanding in some discussion is that this came to us as a result of rare occasions when some permits were issued but left unused, and that then might have posed a problem for other people. It might, I'm not sure the details, but I trust the zoning board in their request. If there's no one else that wishes to speak,
I've got this
Sorry,
one
go ahead.
quick item, Calvin.
Yes, Dan?
And when this first came before us, before we sent it to the plan, I think it was the plan, you guys wrote it, correct? Did you guys write this?
No, zoning board.
Zoning board wrote it.
My only request was where it says, if no, like both of them on section F, if no building permit is required, then the applicant must exercise the permission granted within 1 year. And the language is the same in that other paragraph. If we could just change that 1 year to 18 months, and my reasoning is, when you're dealing with DEM, Rhode Island DOT, you could get tripped up in the permitting process. And then just leave the rest of the language where it would be, if they don't have it within 18 months, they can go back and request another year. That would be my only change in this, would just change that first one, permission granted within 18 months.
Instead of
Basically, because when you're dealing with all these different bureaucracies, you're gonna get tripped up
It
somewhere.
might- it might
could be
take-
something that's not the applicant's fault, so, that's all I really got.
Any other member of the council?
I'm on the fence right there at this point in time, but I think if they apply for a 1-year extension, they have plenty of time to get it. If they don't get a permit within that time, they could apply for a second year extension to cover that.
Yeah, right now, there is no expiration in the ordinance.
Right.
They're for eternity. So I think it's just, that would be just my only suggestion, just change it to 18 months.
1 year is fine with me, 18 months would be fine with me as well.
Yeah, I mean, if you're trying to, I understand your point, that people may get caught up and they may not show they've done any work, but they may have something in the pipeline, so you're just trying to.
I mean, a classic
Okay.
example, it has nothing to do with land use, it's a federal license I have, it expired in October. They've sent me 3 letters of extension. So, God knows when I'm gonna get the actual piece of paper.
Point taken, Dan. Signed up to speak, Tom McMillan, please, Tom? Is Tom, oh, I'm looking. You was
Too
at the
far
back of
forward
the,
to be
you were back there when before the meeting began. Thanks, Tom.
Sure. Real briefly, I am on the zoning board and I want to express support for this amendment and urge council to approve it. Actually, my understanding is that back before the state acted to preclude this, our zoning board did apply an expiration date, although it had not been and is not until now written into the ordinance. So, although that was practice. We considered this at some length in our meeting, talked about it. Our counselor, Attorney Seipel, reviewed the situation around the state and found that quite a few of these cities and towns have actually adopted new language since the state backed away from it. And he also indicated what their time frame was, and the 1 year was pretty much consistent. Actually, this is not a hypothetical or theoretical situation. I'd point out that in October, we had an applicant who had been notified that the time period had run out and should come back to us, and this applicant disagreed rather vociferously, but in fact, his application was 11 years old and had never acted on it. And that certainly indicates that over the passage of time, things change. And our feeling was that by applying an expiration date, 18 months, 12 months, you would continue to consider it within the context of current issues and the comp plan. If you let it go 11 years, things have changed far too much. And so we would encourage the council to approve this change. Thank you.
Thank you.
I would have one question, Mr. McMillan.
Sure.
How do you feel about 1 year versus 18?
Well, we talked about that and we did settle on the 1 year. I can only say that of the 7 of us on the board, and we reached the conclusion that a year was our recommendation.
Also, signed up to speak is the chair of the planning board, Mike DeFrancisco. Mike, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mike DeFrancisco, I'm with the planning board. I just wanted to also add or reiterate the planning board's endorsement of these amendments. The proposed language came before us a month or 2 months ago at one of our meetings after it was delivered from the town council. And we too have the 7
members of the board, it was discussed without controversy, and it was endorsed that way unanimously. So I just wanted to put that on the record. And we saw no problem with that. We did not discuss the one-year extension, but I can empathize with what Dan is saying. And I would also add, this is my own comment now, the one-year extension could very well depend on when it was granted by the zoning board. If it's granted in a February or March, it would expire the following February or March, and it may or may not be construction related, and an applicant could then have like a good season in front of him. If on the other hand, it's approved later on in the year and it expires at a time when an applicant would have to get started in the winter, let's say, or adverse weather, that could be an effect on the 1 year also. And then the other thing that Dan was saying, and I concur heartily, we never know how long it's gonna take with these state permits. Thank you. If there's any questions?
Thank you. Comments, others from the council? Hearing none, I entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is made and seconded. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, so voted. And with regard to the matter of this zoning amendment, Dan, did you wish to, we could discuss if you wish to make a motion to adopt the amendment with adopt the zoning amendment with modified language. Go ahead.
Modify that on both of them, on section F. Let's see, the very first one is, doesn't have any page numbers.
Yeah,
If no building permit is required, then the applicant must exercise the permission granted within 18 months. That would be the one change. And then on the very last page, section H, a special use permit granted under this section shall expire 18 months after the zoning board approval unless the applicant has actually put the subject property to state use.
is there a second to that
I second that,
motion?
Mr. Council President.
Okay. Motion is made and seconded to adopt the zoning amendment with that modified language. Is there other discussion?
I would say in light of the two comments that were made in support of the 18 months, I tend to agree with it.
Okay, here.
That amendment.
That would be the extension, that's not gonna change. After the 18 months
We'll
expired,
get clarification.
if they didn't do it in 18 months, then you'd have to come back and ask for a 1-year extension, which, it's just that first one. Yeah.
We're having a sidebar here on making sure that the language is adopted exactly as it should
Can I
be.
ask Dan a question?
Yes, please,
Because
I wish you
Dan, I
would.
just wanna make sure, the way it reads right now in section F is a dimensional variance granted under this section shall expire within 1 year. You didn't,
That
you
would
want
be,
that
have to
changed.
be changed to
Right,
18 months
okay,
also, Jim, yeah.
exactly. So
That's why we
it's
got
in
you
2
here.
places. And then a use variance granted under this section shall expire within 1 year. That also has to be changed, right?
That's on, you're still on section F?
Section F.
It's the new language.
Yeah.
There are 3 areas,
Yeah, there's
You're-
three,
you're-
there's
you're
3
leaving-
areas
you're
where you
leaving
would
the
change it
extension.
to 18 months, I'm
you're
sorry.
leaving the extension to 1 year, but
You
everything
leave the
else,
extension at 1 year.
right, not just that one place.
Yeah.
The initial
Use
granting
variance.
is 18 months.
Right.
The initial granting.
Excuse me, I have a question.
I can think of a project on Route 2, DOT, wetlands.
I'm sorry, we did close the public hearing.
Okay.
Sorry. It's closed. Now we're at the point of voting as an amendment, 18 months to allow.
So, question then, as far as whether or not this project will actively on a go-forward basis, and how people will be notified, will that be also available?
I'm sorry, well, as a point of information, I'm not sure I understand. You mean someone to whom a permit is already then?
Yeah.
Oh, I would not, I would assume it would be going forward. from this point forward. I don't know that we go backwards.
So it's not retroactive?
It wouldn't be retroactive.
And is there, would there be a notification process? That's my question.
And then the last one.
Well, when somebody comes in,
We'll just offer you-
when someone comes in to ask for a special use permit going forward, that they would be told, you have it, and you have it for 18 months. And if you don't act on it, then you can have a 1-year extension. That's my understanding.
You'd have to go back to the
Right,
zoning board.
but when it's approved, it's gonna be approved for 18 months later,
Yeah,
correct? So people would know that when they apply.
when they applied the first time, all the abutters would be notified anyway, because
Right,
it's
right.
200 foot of property on it, if I remember right. So,
That won't change, none of that changes. Other discussion in the council? Those in favor of the amended ordinance? Ordinance amendment, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So voted. I thank the zoning board, the planning board for bringing these issues to our attention. Before we move to the new business section of our agenda, I would like to just make a comment quickly about some little bit of recent past history. And some of you may recall that on December 10th, we held a meeting at Rhode School, and at that point, council voted to adopt a 60-day moratorium. And then some of you may be aware of the fact that that moratorium was challenged, in fact, that very night. And I'm speaking because I chaired that meeting, however inefficiently. I chaired that meeting. Thanks for the humor, you're back in the room. Chaired that meeting, and I do recall that we were told that night that if we moved forward, we would expect a suit to be filed. But I just want to say that having brought that forward myself, I did that because I had worked from the time of my reelection, which obviously many of you have read, but from the time of my reelection, I worked with our legal counsel, who in turn worked with the planner, and they prepared what I presented on December 10th. That's why I moved ahead, and I had support from some members of the council. Having said that, there has been a recent decision, and I'm going to ask our solicitor, and I'm sure I already said more than he wanted me to, but I'm going to ask our solicitor if he would comment on that decision that came down a week ago Thursday or something. Or was it Thursday? Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. President, on March 21, we received a very favorable decision from Judge Lanfear of the Superior Court, who heard the matter on the injunctive prayers for relief. So the decision is a matter of public record, and a copy's been distributed to all members of the town council and available to the public if they want to see it. That does not dispose of the entire case. The judge did not rule on a couple of the aspects of the case. And right now, as a matter of fact, the actual judgment and order are the subject of a hearing that's going to come up. But as to at least 3 of the counts in the complaint, the judge has made a decision which appears now to be final. So it was a good, very good victory at this stage for the town, and the moratorium, the validity of the moratorium has been upheld by the judge on that. As you know, there are a number of other cases that are still pending concerning the same issues, or similar issues concerning solar, and we continue to defend them as necessary. Since this was my report, I only have 2 other matters I'd like to bring up. The Arcadia case involving the state projected or proposed building there. The town was advised by the court that they were going to place the case on what's called show cause, not placing either party on it. If we had only gotten a show cause order to show cause why it shouldn't be decided against us, that would be bad news. But it was good news in that the court placed both parties on show cause, which just means that the court thinks that they could make a decision on this in an abbreviated fashion. Can't read much into that, but a briefing schedule was put down. The town did meet that schedule on time, actually, we beat it by a week. The state has 20 days after the submission of ours to respond, and that should be coming up within the next week or two. So, we have to wait on that. The town of Richmond, as you recall, has a similar case. They're sort of moving together, they're just a bit behind us in the scheduling, but my guess is that they'll receive the same type of an order, and probably both matters will be heard at the same time, but can't be sure. So I'll keep you advised on that one. As you probably have seen, there are 2 new cases that have been brought by Green Energy. We answered both of those cases on behalf of all named defendants, and those cases will proceed along with the others in the condo line of solar. So that's my report for now. Nothing further.
Thank you. Any questions of the council? Could I just say, I speak for some, I'm sure, at least for me, I want to say thank you for your representation. And I also thank the planner for working with you to put together a presentation that the judge apparently felt was satisfactory, to say the least. So thank you very much for your counsel in that regard. Moving to new business, first item A, Exeter Rural Land Trust Preservation, Exeter Rural Land Preservation Trust donations. I'm gonna ask Frank, he's our liaison, I'm gonna ask Frank, would you mind speaking to that briefly? Tell us what they're up to.
Well, as I mentioned earlier, they're covering a lot of ground, and one of their initiatives is to receive donations, not just in land, but also possibly money. And they had asked me to ask the council if to have the treasurer set up a special fund for them to keep their money. So they dedicated
Repository of
Yes.
funds.
So it'll be dedicated solely for their use. That's something that, we should be doing for the land trust.
And this has been addressed at a work session. Let me suggest that you make a motion, Frank, that we set up such a dedicated account, and if there's a second, we'll have a quick discussion, and just have Maria, our treasurer, voice her approval as a potential. Is there a second, would you make that a motion?
Yes.
Frank?
Yes, I'll make that motion.
Seconded.
Motion's made and seconded that a special designated fund be established for the dedicated account for any donations that might come into the town through the land trust. And may I ask for the record, Madam Treasurer, you have an issue with establishing such an account?
No, I already spoke to the people at the land trust, and they've been asking for this for a while, so none of this is taxpayer money, it's just if people wish to donate, it'll just be set aside for their use.
Thanks for emphasizing the fact that we're not talking about tax dollars being contributed. We're talking about individuals who wish to make their own mark on preserving Exeter in a way, I guess.
And I believe they already have some potential people in mind.
As Frank said earlier, it seems to have been, it is an ongoing, very busy, dedicated group of people that are working toward Exeter's future in that regard. Other discussion, any comments, questions? Hearing none, those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So voted. Item 2. Manny, would you want to say a word or two?
Sure. This is concerning town hall hours, and I will tell you that since my election in November, this is the first thing I've asked to be put on the agenda. And I probably learned a good lesson. I should probably investigate before I ask for something to be put on an agenda. And it was prompted by seeing a notice from Barrington Town Hall. And there's a movement in municipalities to make town hall services available at night for obvious reasons. People work during the day, they can't get in. And I wondered whether it was something we should look into. And I do think it's something we should look into and investigate. I've spoken to the town employees here. It might be a challenge for Exeter because of the small number of employees. Nevertheless, I think it's something we should look at. I'm going to be reaching out to the employees a little more. If anyone here has a comment, I'd welcome it, or reach out to me via email. I think the composition of Exeter is changing population-wise. I think we have a lot more families coming in, and I think it might be something that will work for Exeter in the future. It might not happen overnight, but I'm just trying to think into the future a little bit. So, Mr. President, I'd ask that this be put on unfinished business for next month, and in the meantime, I will do a further inquiry and report back at that time.
It's a noble concept, it really is. And we all received the Barrington communication to which Manny's referring, and it would be great if we could accommodate in that way. And so I think that's your goal in
Yes.
looking further. So let's move that to unfinished business. Appreciate your report on that, Manny, and let's move to another concern of yours, item C.
So, one of the things I did when I was running also was look at the Exeter website for the town. And, you know, it's something that has not been given a great deal of priority by past councils. I think we're looking at things differently from Exeter. One of the things we're going to be talking about in a few minutes is the Economic Development Task Force. And we're trying to expand our tax base. We're trying to keep in line with how things should be run in Exeter, how things should be looked at. And so as part of that economic development, I think if you want to attract businesses in here to broaden our tax base and to lessen the burden on taxpayers, then you really do need to have a website that looks like you're trying to do that. And in the past few years, there's been only $300 allocated for the website. I think we need to make an investment. And so one of the things I wanted to do was form a committee, and I'm going to ask the council to hopefully appoint the members of the committee. Lori Hauser, a taxpayer who has a business dealing with websites, she can help. Amy Nielsen's from the library. She's one that actually developed and did a good job with the $300 that she was provided by past councils. She'd like to sit on it. I think we need to have Lynn, even though you are tasked to the hilt with your jobs as the town clerk. I think one of the things we would need to do is discuss with all of the other department heads what the website would have to do, how it would have to work for them and their departments. And Ken, I can't remember if we said you, and I know you just, all right. So we're gonna leave Ken out of it.
Are you sure?
So I'd like the council to approve, and I'd like to sit on the committee. I did get an email from a gentleman, a business, who does a lot of municipal websites. He and I have played phone tag. We've had a couple of emails. So I'd like to keep this on unfinished business next month. I'd like the council to approve those 4 members of the website committee and allow us to do something. Again, this is something that may not happen overnight. It may take the better part of 6 months. It may take a year because I'm going to be asking the council to approve some money through the budget. And we may have to stack it with 2 years. But it's something that I think we need to do, and we need to make that change to make us look better and more attractive to everyone, taxpayers, businesses, everyone.
Thank you, Manny. Appreciate your initiative, understand it. I know Lori Hauser, and what are the others that you wished us to?
Amy Nielsen,
Amy and Lynn.
Lynn, and myself.
And you'll probably work with Ken to coordinate some sort of a meeting kind of schedule? Or?
No question, and part of this is also with the IT services we're going to be bringing in. I probably have to be working with that person. So again, it's not something that's going to happen quick. I just want to kind of get started on it because I think it's important for the town.
Mm-hmm. Right, and Jim is suggesting we make that point that it's an advisory committee.
Sure.
And it's an exploratory committee. I hesitate, and again, I'm not pushing back. We have to keep in mind the issue of a public meeting. If there's a committee meeting, we ran into this some years ago with a finance committee that I wanted to set up. So I just don't know if we can work that, we need to work that through as sort of an advisory committee that meets kind of ad hoc. Anyway, I don't have a problem moving on your motion.
Do they have to post agendas?
Well, that's what I'm
That was my
asking.
question.
Well, that's what I'm asking, because I,
Meetings do have to be posted, they have, they
Do
will
they have
be.
to follow all the open meetings laws?
Right.
Okay.
The reason for the advisory is, Cal knows, I think, is because sometimes the members that are appointed need to know that
they're not
they aren't making
decisions.
decisions
Sure.
on these things, it always falls back to the
Yes,
council.
absolutely. And I'll be reporting back to the council eventually with a recommendation.
You know, and again, this only brings up a question in my mind as to whether or not it should be an officially appointed committee, or whether this should be a group of people, you know, that sits down together at the library at some point. I mean, I'm not sure if that's suggested, you know, but not having an officially appointed committee.
I'll be happy to do it without the designation, I was just.
I understand, and I'm not trying to throw a monkey
No
wrench
worries.
into it. I'm trying to think about if that might be a first step, but any thoughts on, I mean, I like the idea that people are gonna sit down. I guess I'm concerned about whether it becomes,
I'll withdraw the motion if I made it. It really makes no difference, I just want to get it done. However you feel and the solicitor feels.
Well, again, if you form a committee and it's performing a function, even if it's advisory to the council,
we
then
vote
you
on
have to
it.
follow open meetings. Now, it's not all that onerous, you just simply have to post your meetings, you also have to have somebody who keeps a minute.
Sure.
That would be available. So it's really not that bad. So if you want to do it that way, you can, but you just have to be sure that someone is making certain that the Open Records, or the Open Meetings Act is being followed.
good, well, let me just, at this point, suggest, this is a thought, and again, only because of what you're hearing. What if you, as a member of the council, meet in the library some evening with people? I mean, you can do that as a
Sure.
member of the council, do your own research.
Sure.
I'm just, then we don't go through the
Not as official.
process
Right,
of
you get- I
having
mean,
an
that works.
official committee.
Manny could,
But-
Manny could ask whoever he wants to attend to give him
Yeah.
input, it's up to you.
Even better. I like
But
that
you
idea
wouldn't
better.
have to, they wouldn't be members of a committee.
Yes.
They would simply be
Just
people that you're
you're-
soliciting to get
Perfect.
advice from.
Perfect.
And then you come back and say you met with a group of people.
Okay.
Sorry, Lynn?
No, then it
No,
wouldn't be
see,
a
then
meeting.
there's
It
no
would simply-
posting,
Sure.
it's you meeting some evening, some whatever.
All right.
Okay, wanna try it?
Yes.
But, and what you can do is come back and say that, let's rethink it.
Okay.
Is that all right?
Perfect.
Did you pull that motion back?
Yes.
Okay. But having said that, let's continue this to unfinished business. Manny, you see what you can do? All
Yes, I
right?
will.
Okay. And Manny, you're at 3D rather.
Okay, I went for the hat trick this month. Council iPads are something that I think we really need to move to. Again, you know, I should say most, but I'm suspecting a lot of municipalities are moving towards iPads for the council. And the reason is obvious. Today, with Lynn's help, and again, this is something that's not gonna happen overnight, we're gonna have to get a process together because we've been doing it one way for years. But I think it's gonna save a lot of money for the town, it's only gonna save a lot of trees and the copying of papers, and it's gonna save a lot of time and labor for the town employees. So my plan is to have everything that the council gets every month for its meetings to be put on a laptop, emailed. Council, the town will purchase the laptops, they will be property of the town, we will develop protocols, rules and regulations, so when somebody's sworn in as a council member, they have to sign for the iPads. There will no private use against that, that will all be part of the protocols. Today alone, for today's meeting, and Lynn, I may ask you to correct me, I know you sent me an email saying what you sent me was 200 pages, was that just for this week or the whole month? So, 200 pages, that might, we've had times there have been a lot more, trust me. I probably got a stack of papers this high from the 4 months I've been on the council. A lot of unnecessary paper. So I went through all the emails today in preparation for the meeting tonight, and I found out that the stuff that I really wanted to talk about, which of course I forgot at the office, I printed out at my office, there were 12 pages. 12 pages, because a lot of this stuff is important, has to be provided to the council, but frankly, it's never talked about. You look at it and say, okay, I really don't need it, and you kind of put it in a folder. And so it's a lot of time and a lot of money. this is just the first hearing, we want to be doing more investigating, working with the town and the clerk and the employees that are doing it. But it looks like it may save 10 hours a week labor-wise. Did we say that? Don't hold us to that, but it's gonna save a lot of time. And I think what the employees did when they emailed it to me was about 2 hours worth of work. And we can probably cut down on that once we have a good system in place. So it's on the agenda for the first time. I do plan on speaking with everyone and trying to get it. I do think we need to move for iPads. Doesn't have to be in 6 months, could be in 8 months. But I think going into the future, it's gonna save a lot of money, time, and labor for the town, and I think it's the future. So I'd just be asked that if you're placed on unfinished business to, let me talk to everyone
I'm
else.
just gonna do a quick demo. See, Manny doesn't want this. Manny wants folders of another kind, like all you young people use. Anyway, but, and can I see this for a minute? Does this mean Jim won't be bringing this either? I'm just kidding. No, but, just point something for me. Something for me, iPads versus laptops. You
Oh, I'm
spoke
sorry, did I
which-
say iPads?
Well,
So, I'm
what
thinking
do you
laptops
think?
might be better, only because you can flip them, but, next month I'm gonna bring my own personal laptop. I bought a laptop for this purpose, and I'm gonna bring it, and I'm gonna work with the clerk again to resend everything by email. Once you get the system in place, there's only so many things that are gonna have to happen, like, all the communications can all be sent together in one email, and to 5 council members, and somebody said, hey, you're gonna do the same thing for the planning board and the zoning board? Maybe. I think the inspectors are using iPads now, so iPads might not be as good. We may need an actual laptop to lift up and be able to maneuver around, but it's something that we will report back on, but I do think it's something that we should strongly consider. Some of the council members may not be as quick to adapt to the laptops, but even if I weren't, it's not about me, it's about the town, and I may not be around the next election, so we should have something in place that makes it easier for everybody.
Speaking of a generational kind of thing,
Could I comment, there are at least 2 IT types on the zoning board, and I see they have some device in front of them. I'm too old to know what it is, but that may be something you could discuss with them.
I sure will, thank you, Tom.
and our prior president, a couple of presidents ago, Arlene Hicks, used to come with it wasn't a laptop, but it was a device of some kind, and she had some of her information there. And Lynn, we've talked, actually Lynn and I had talked about doing all the communications, because that's heavy. They tried that a couple of years ago. I said, would you please pull mine out? However, I would agree not to. I'm not, if you want to just try sending the communications that way, because some of them, you're right, I mean, some of them are informational that we never address here, and just, we could start that.
Sure.
Maybe, well, no, well, just not this month, but you come with your device.
Yes,
and
we'll keep it on unfinished business.
and
and
we'll
we'll-
moving forward. See, give it a try.
Okay.
Maybe next month. Okay?
Okay.
All right, we're gonna move that to unfinished
Yes,
business.
thank you.
Did you have any other issues on the agenda?
Not this month, Mr. Council President.
We'll
Thank you.
wait for you next month.
Yes.
Next item. This is an item, the Economic Development Task Force came out of some work sessions we've had, came out of discussions with our treasurer, came out of discussions with people who pay taxes. Just concern. We had posted for a long time an Economic Development Commission. They used to be 1 year ago. It was active for a while. They did took some initiatives. People moved away, things changed. Madam Clerk, I don't know if you've referenced this, I don't know if you found Madam Clerk's memo. You have it. If you can reference it, when she handed to me this memo, so these were prior postings for the position of Economic Development Commission members. So I sat here last week and I looked at it and I said, oh, wait a minute, I don't think I'd apply, because it did say this is a volunteer position, commission's purpose is to note, the candidate should possess a thorough knowledge of our comp plan and other ordinances, and I'm sure that most everybody doesn't have a thorough knowledge of this right here. This is on the agenda, by the way, the revision of this. You know how much we've talked about this? You've heard discussion of this, haven't you? Got it all under your belt?
Comprehensive.
Yeah, this is the comprehensive plan that is undergoing revision. I like to do the show and tell because you need to see what they're working on. Anyway, so I took some time to go through this posting, and I made, here, can you take one and pass it down, please? I made some suggestions to the council that I wish you'd take a few minutes to look at as a posting for an economic development task force. We already have had some people recently that have expressed an interest in sitting down to help the town, everybody, council, planning board, everybody, see what we can do to attract more businesses to the town. So I'm not married to this, I changed some language. Would you just take a few minutes to review it with me and tell me about language changes? Lynn and I worked on it. Notice the top, draft proposal. That's all. Let's spend a couple of minutes so that we can take care of this business.
Well, I can see right away that it's less intimidating.
Thank you. I changed, possess a thorough knowledge of. Interested candidates should possess an interest in this. We're all interested in it, but I bet none of you have a thorough knowledge. Here's what I've read, and just so you can see, and then we'll talk about it. Tell me how you want to change it, council. The town council is currently seeking, this is a public announcement, because we're gonna move on this, so listen. Town council is currently seeking Exeter residents to join an economic development task force. This is a volunteer position. The purpose of the task force is to evaluate, review, consider, and encourage appropriate business opportunities for the town, and to carry out such additional responsibilities as prescribed in state law or requested by the town council. Interested candidates should possess an interest in the town's financial status and growth, and the town's ordinances, zoning codes, comprehensive plan, and state laws. Be able to communicate with local business leaders, local and state agencies, the media, town officials. Be able to establish, maintain, and/or pursue cooperative, creative working relationships with the public. And then it simply says interested candidates should send a letter, and I would like to just add the word brief resume. Lynn and I worked on this. I think I'd like to see brief resume as opposed to someone who feels they've got to provide pages, especially if they don't have a resume immediately available. So, folks, tell us, what language can we change?
May I make a suggestion?
Please.
I have no idea who should be on an economic development task force, and so I reached out to the Rhode Island Commerce Commission and made a couple of phone calls asking if there's someone that is charged with helping a municipality. I can't imagine that we're the first ones that have thought of this and had to do, so I'm assuming there's a blueprint or some sort of map that we can follow. So the only suggestion, I mean, and it's great if you send this out, you get 5 people who live in town who want to volunteer. Super, thanks for volunteering. They may have no knowledge on how to go about this. And so I think maybe we should, before we post something, maybe we should talk to somebody from the Commerce Commission to see if they can make any suggestions, because they may say, hey, instead of just 5 taxpayers, you need a business leader, somebody from the zoning board, somebody from planning, because there's a lot of infrastructure going on. So maybe we can hold off and see what they have to say. Only a suggestion.
Should we add language about interacting with planning and zoning? If they come up with an idea about something to be.
We're gonna say the same. If I could speak.
Well, let's go back to Manny's suggestion. Who will he, I mean, Manny, I understand what you're saying. I thought if there are, and I think there are, I understand there are some people that have already said they'd like to move forward. If we gather those people together and then get somebody down who says, here's the way you should function, rather than give us I hate to turn people away.
I understand.
If people, let's say what I just said out here, people, if anybody's sitting there and says, oh, I'd like to do that, I welcome them later. They're not gonna, obviously not a lot of hands going up, but they should think about it. But my thought is if we gather people together, then maybe, I've always thought we should get somebody from Commerce to come talk to them about what they need to do. That's
What you
my
might
thought
wanna
is-
change, Calvin, looking at this in that very first paragraph. Town council is currently seeking Exeter residents to join an economic development task force. I would put Exeter residents and Exeter business owners, because there's a lot of people that own businesses in this town that don't live here.
Yeah, good point.
So we add the word "and business
And
owners."
Exeter business owners.
Well, it's,
Yeah.
no, Exeter residents and business
There's
owners.
quite a few business owners that do not live in the town. so.
Well, I understand that, Dan, but it's Exeter businesses,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So you say Exeter residents and business owners.
Yeah, and Exeter, yeah.
Well, I
Yeah.
mean, somebody
Yeah, we don't want
mentioned,
someone from South Kingston.
I
from the South
understand,
Kingston.
well, but Exeter business
Little know how
owners.
to word it.
Well, I think, I get your point. Mike, you want to have a comment? We'll ask you, because
I'm
this
just
is
gonna follow
important.
on the comment by Mike Khan, that you don't wanna set the bar so high that you scare people away, so I can understand you're Exeterizing the ad, so to speak. But then, if you said the task force would be assisted, if that language would go in there, by members of the town zoning board, planning board, and council, it may help explain a little bit more about the aim and the scope, that these people are not gonna be on some, like isolated committee somewhere.
So, yeah, that language makes sense to add after that first paragraph.
Somewhere in there.
Wants to evaluate, review, and will be, and this task force will be assisted by members of zoning, planning, and other town officials.
Yeah, keep it
Because I
together.
already pointed to our treasurer, who said, sit as a member, or at least ex officio or something, put your input. Because all she keeps saying is, we need to move in a new direction. So we can add that kind of language. That makes sense? Other thoughts?
And in terms of talking to the Commerce agency, I think, just to make it clear, I think that should be something that the task force should pursue once they're established, rather than imposing that on them
Well, sure.
initially, because I think that could be intimidating too. I think we gotta make sure we don't scare people off with this thing. And
Language.
there have been some
Okay.
people that have been
Sure.
expressed interest in this already.
Language, other changes, adopting Dan's thoughts and Mike's thought. Anybody else here? Does it sound okay for you folks to move forward on this?
Sure.
Then let's do this. We'll make those changes, get it ready, and if you wish, I'll bring it back and we'll put it on May's agenda, and you can look at it again, we'll move it out, unless you wanna move it sooner. Yeah.
Well, we have 2 budget hearings the third week of April. Maybe just do a
Well,
quick,
work
quick
session.
special, yeah, do a
Well,
quick.
you can look at it, and then
Look
we
at
can,
it.
yeah.
And then it would be ready for the May
It's
meeting.
all ready. You've already commented, so let's move that forward and have it ready.
So it's gonna be in the work session?
Sure, when we meet, and we'll finish it up and then,
Put it on the
It's in-
administrative issues.
sure, other administrative issues.
422?
Yeah. Having said that, we'll also move this item forward to unfinished business today. Agreed?
Yep.
Then let's move to F, please. The VIN inspection issue, bring to your attention because a couple of weeks ago, I had received a communication from our new town sergeant, Bill Donovan, who indicated that he wishes to continue the practice of assisting residents of the town with VIN inspections, which have been done through the years, most of you know, by our previous town sergeant, Richard Brown. When Bill Donovan explains to me that he wanted to move forward to have his name added to the roster of those who could do it, there was just a hesitation. And so I'm putting it here because through his request to me, I've been in contact with DMV and DMV's legal counsel regarding this matter. As recently as Friday afternoon, I received a phone call, and they are very anxious and willing and hoping to be able to have those continue here. There needs to be some change in languages, which I'm told Friday afternoon will come down this way so that we can pursue it. So I have it there so that I want you to know that that's an ongoing issue that I'm working with Town Sergeant Donovan to move this forward. And I was told Friday afternoon that we'll be getting some insight as to what language can be added to current statutes. There are a couple in play. Bill, that speaks to where we're at, I believe.
I got a quick question for Bill. Bill, if you don't do it, where do people in Exeter go to?
They'd have to go to another town.
Well, cause I'm asking, cause I know from experience, if you go over to North Kingston, they got a sign, we do not do Exeter.
That's correct.
Because they do them for me, I own property in Exeter, so you can't go to the registry and have them done.
Right.
So this is something that would have to continue, you have to do it.
We're working on
Yeah,
it.
so.
We're working on it for the very reason Dan is suggesting. You did say they do them for you because you have property next to it.
Yeah, I have to bring the tax bill with me to prove it, so.
But no, I think what you meant to say is you have property in North Kingstown, which is why they do them for you.
Yeah, but I have to bring that tax bill.
Yeah, I know,
with
but
me, so.
you just told us that they do it for you because you have property in Exeter, but you meant North
But when you,
Kingstown.
when you go in there though, in
It's
the police
okay.
station, they have a sign, if you're from Exeter, we do not do.
So why do they do it for you?
Because I own property in North Kingston.
There you
so.
go. Anybody pick up on that?
No, that was my question, I never knew if you could go to the registry and have it done for the state, so.
Is that gonna go down to business?
Yes, please. We may not have a lot of new business next month, but we'll certainly have a lot we haven't finished. Finally, if I could, address the issue of a proposal made by our Director of Emergency Management, Stefan Koulikas, regarding some memorandums of understanding. Did you want to speak to that, Manny? Because I think I know where we're going to go.
Sure, I'm probably gonna ask this to be put on unfinished business also. I did not reach out to the EMA director, I wish I had. This has to do with the Boone Lake Management District and the fact that they have to submit a plan that's approved by DEM to the town. We've been trying to work on that. I met with the EMA director and some of the residents of the board. We came up with a plan, they were submitted, we're still waiting, and honestly, I'm a little confused whether or not we need a memorandum of understanding. Memorandum of understanding is like the state police saying we're gonna come in and help out if there's an emergency, same thing with other town services. So I will speak to the EMA director and reach out to him, and if we can put this on unfinished business for next month, Mr. President.
Okay, the only reason I'm hesitant is because we did have a communication where he asked if, well, he said he'd like to forward it to Jim regarding a simple MOU between our community and agencies needing this document. And he wasn't, in this message to us, he isn't referring specifically to the Boone Lake, but to some other agencies. I was gonna ask, this is gonna be my request, that we pass this on to Ken to craft language for MOUs, which we've done in other cases. But I know about your Boone Lake situation, but if you look here, he's talking about other agencies, and he speaks to that. Could we do this? Can we pass it on to Ken, have him review this? You speak to Stefan
Sure.
and see if that's an appropriate path. And we will continue this to next month, so that we have something to look at. Ken, you have this communication, don't you?
Draft up them,
Comments?
send it to you and stuff.
Okay, thank you.
Comments? Could you work on this for us? Okay, thank you. Jim told me before the meeting began, he had received a call, but I thought maybe you could help.
Yeah, I talked to
He was-
Stefan, too.
He was very happy to have you do that. Very happy for that. Thank you. Let's move to unfinished business, please. Regarding the trailer park license renewal, I understand last month you continued it again, but since that time, you know, we have received a communication that indicates that the work has been finished, completed as was required. So I would ask for a motion that the license be granted, assuming that all necessary paperwork and fees rather, have been submitted. And that would be a motion if there's a second.
Seconded.
Motion is made and seconded to grant that license to Split Rock Mobile Home Park. Any discussion? Thank you for your patience. Thank you, Lynn, for your patience. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, so voted. Regarding media coverage, I'd like to leave it on here. I do understand they've interviewed, but I spoke to a local reporter, Standard Times, does not know the outcome. However, I did suggest he might like to do a local story, I don't know if he will. That's on our interesting building that's being constructed just here to the west of 102, because I continue to get questions, as probably do many of you, as to what is this intriguing structure. So I thought, picture, a story, and, well, see, I heard fish, I heard art, I heard alien landing. So let's get it out there. And I suggested to him, only because I want to keep our local reporter busy, and he thought it was a good idea, but whether we'll see it, I don't know. But wouldn't it be nice to have the real story? And maybe you have the real story, but I don't, so I'll refer people to you. You got it?
The building inspector.
The
That's
building
real
inspector,
story.
okay. Moving on to preservation and cemeteries. Ken, anything for us?
Nothing,
Well, my only comment is a couple of months ago, we did hear from Sheila Reynolds, and she indicated that there was someone who wished to donate, and I understand we have not heard any more correspondence from her. I'm just gonna ask Madam Clerk if she might do a quick memo to Sheila and ask if there's been any follow-up, because we're willing to consider. We just, remember we asked Sheila to help follow up, and we haven't heard anything. So if you wouldn't mind, your convenience, thank you. Any other discussion there? Impact fee study update. Ken, anything?
yes, just quick one, that we were provided a few options on the impact fees, and I sent it out to the group for comment. And we're at a point now where we are gonna rely on the consultant to tell us which is the best method to collect and keep it within the range that we're currently have.
We're gonna have another meeting with him, you think?
Well, I think the council,
Work
the
session.
next one, the council's gonna have to determine which fees they wanna collect.
Okay, because he's gonna put it in a package that will tell us what's the most feasible
Right.
approach for
He's
us
already
to
done that,
use.
and as a group, it's really not even a decision that we should be making. It's more of a council now, so I'll set up either a work session or a council meeting.
Okay.
There are options to be decided upon.
There are options,
Yeah.
so the last options that we talked about.
Do you think that should be a work session rather than a council meeting?
Well, yeah, probably.
Yeah, because he's the one that needs the flexibility when he comes down from Virginia to Maryland to Boston.
And even if it's a daytime thing and it's only representatives, I mean, if not everybody, if something's set up, but people are otherwise unable, I mean, Frank, Mike may be able to massage his schedule, Manny, you might be able to too. When this fellow's available, because he's from out of state, and we don't know. We'll let you set something up, Ken, okay? Very good. Questions of Ken? E is an item that needs to be remaining on the agenda. Transfer station status. We don't know if there's any movement there. You haven't made a, okay. There's some discussion we'll need to have on that one. Workplace harassment training, work session coming up. We're almost there, folks. We had a communication, it's number 13 in January, from the Wood Pawcatuck Wild and Scenic Rivers a proposal. They were asking for representatives to represent Exeter to serve on that commission. We have had 2 letters of inquiry, as you might, or interest rather, if you know council. Would you wish me to make a motion? Do one of you wish to appoint those 2 individuals?
We can appoint 2 people, is that correct?
I think we should try. If they reject them, then I think we should try it.
I know that Peter Lockature is one of them, and he was involved in establishing the book. He's in the butter to the property, he would like to remain involved, so you definitely, it's a very good fit.
Move to appoint.
And I think the other gentleman, Mr. Quinn, I think it is.
Lady from.
Dan, excuse me, Dan Quinn, that's another good fit, so I'd make a motion to approve both
Those applicants.
applicants.
I'll second.
Motion is made and seconded to appoint Dan Quinlan and Peter Lackacher to the Wood Pawcatuck Wild and Scenic Rivers Commission. Discussion, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, so voted. Dan, have you heard anything from the city?
As of yesterday morning, nothing has been scheduled. Well, the Senate was scheduled, but they never notified it. It's postponed, and I haven't heard anything on that. I've been checking the agenda every day, and I will be at the State House tomorrow night. I'll see if I can track down Senator Morgan and Representative Price. But right now, nothing. It's just sitting there in limbo.
Regarding J, 2 bids were received,
Correct.
and Ken, give us a quick update.
Lynn, myself, Maria, and IT helper, James Angie, are reviewing them. We will probably get together after Lynn's return and then present to the council a recommendation. There were only 2 received. About 20 people responded and requested them. But both proposals are very different. And, but we'll give you a good rundown and a good synopsis of what.
And the consultant that we brought in to review seems to be, from
Right on top of it, yeah.
what I've heard, it seems to know exactly
It's worth it.
what we need.
Yes.
And I just remember the one comment by Lynn to me that someone came in to work, walked around the building and said, we're not coming here, your equipment is so old and outdated. And I think that speaks to the fact that we need to spend money to upgrade so that these people can function and not have the problems that they continue to face, weekly, almost daily? Okay. Enough said. So we may be able to do that at May. We may be able to move on that
Correct.
at the May meeting.
All I can say is, thank God we have someone that can understand
Well,
these
exactly.
proposals, because like Ken said,
Exactly.
they're hard to compare, because it's like comparing apples and oranges, the
Right.
proposal. And I was looking at it, I'd be lost.
Thank you. Item K is there only as a point of information. Council last month moved to set up a public hearing in May on this proposed amendment. Was that officially voted, or do we need to, it was it not? So this will be posted for public hearing at the May meeting. That's item K. Item L and M regarding requests for planning board appointments to 2 of the, to preserve at Rolling Greens liaison to work with Frank, and also to the Exeter Rural Land Preservation Trust to work with Frank. And these were requests that went to the planning board to see if there were members of the board who might wish to step forward. We haven't had a response yet, so we'll keep that here, unless you don't have a comment yet at this point.
Yeah, this will be on an upcoming agenda. We
Good.
couldn't get to it at our last meeting.
Oh, wonder why. I wonder why. Thank you. So continue to try to address it. Thank you very much. Finally, finally, under unfinished business. Comprehensive plan revision, and I suggested we continue to post this monthly to see if anyone wishes to make a comment. We did meet with the planning board a week ago tonight, and that was one of the topics of our conversation. And I've asked Frank if he'd make a quick report as our liaison to the board.
Well, I
There's
think
been work that's been done.
there's
Tell
been a
us.
lot of work that's been done. I know because we had started this when I was on the planning board, and of course Ashley has been hired as a consultant to actually draft the ordinance and bring before the planning board for review. The council had allocated a certain amount of money, which is far less than what it was required to hire a consultant. I know back in 1994, I think it was close to $100,000 we paid a consultant to put this together. And I think the best quote we got when we investigated this on the planning board was, the lowest was $65,000. And part of that quote put a lot of the burden still on the planning board to do the actual writing. So I think we have a highly qualified planner in developing this for us. And she's worked diligently. I know I think we have four elements of the 9 elements that we are updating have been drafted and reviewed by the planning board, and we're working on the 5th element presently. And then there are 2 new elements that are required by the state. Renewable energy. So there's a lot of work to be done. And the other thing that the planning board had decided way back then is this. Cal had brought up a huge voluminous comprehensive plan. It was one of the goals of the planning board from the very beginning to streamline significantly so that it becomes a much more usable document. There's a lot of, what we feel was a lot of words, a lot of language in there that's redundant and really unnecessary. So they're in the process of working on that. And all I can say is that we have an excellent planning board that's reviewing this, and we have an excellent planner that is actually doing the drafting to present to the board, and I highly commend them both, and I just hope that we can hang on to our planner who is only part-time right now. It'd be hard to get a part-time planner, period, let alone the quality of the planner that we now have. And she's proven herself many times before the planning board, and especially in our latest venture into Superior Court, where we have an excellent solicitor working with an excellent planner that got us an excellent result.
I gave my soapbox, but we're supposed to be talking about the comprehensive plan revision, but you can't resist. And I.
Well, that is about the comprehensive.
Yes, it is, I concur with everything you said wholeheartedly. Thank you. Questions of the council, Mr. Liaison? Mr. Liaison, there could be a second, but we'll just go with anything else anybody wants to add? Okay. Can we move then to the reports section of the agenda? And I had asked it to be removed. And I asked our tax assessor to come here this evening only because she's got issues on her plate, and she's written us last month and this month some reports. But the one that fascinates me most about her most recent issues is that she has to review motor vehicle rolls that are sent from DMV to each city and town to make sure that the people who live in those cities and towns are appropriately taxed. And the most exciting news that she got a few weeks ago is that on our motor vehicles roll has been included the Peter Pan buses from Providence. So our treasurer insists we keep them there and send them a tax bill. That's not gonna work. So it's just an example of, are you confident in everything that comes, everything that comes out of DMV? Are there reasons to be concerned? This young lady works very, very hard. Carrie, I asked you to come. You want to tell us about, a couple of things that
Sure,
are
I'll
on your
touch-
plate?
Sure.
Thank you, Carrie.
So as Cal stated, every year we get the roll from the DMV. So there's numerous issues within that role. Since the last time we spoke, I had a unpriced vehicle because we have unassigned account numbers. So we have over 10,000 vehicles, of which some of them come in with unassigned account numbers and need to be priced. So I had a Western Star, which is the big tractors, that was registered to Heritage, and it came in with a VIN number that was short, so I didn't have the full VIN, so I couldn't price it. And he never owned that vehicle. It was actually Costco in Smithfield that owned it. So it was only on the roll for a number of days. So we have unpriced, unassigned, as well as Exeter touches East Greenwich, West Greenwich, South Kingstown, Hopkinton, Richmond. So we surround a lot of we have a lot of surrounding communities, so we have to share the vehicles. We have the Saunderstown mailing addresses, so we get a lot of South Kingstown vehicles. North Kingstown gets our records. We did get the buses, which we can't keep for tax revenue, but we wish we can. But one of my major concern with motor vehicle this year is that in the governor's budget, she's changing the terms from the current state law, which she's proposing a percentage of 87%, and the current car tax phase out is at 85%. She's proposing a state exemption of $2,800, where the current state exemption is $3,000, and the issue is that if that's passed in the 11th hour, as it was, the budget was passed in 2017 in August, well, our financial town meeting is the second Tuesday in June, so that affects the tax bills. So we have, that's an immediate concern. Every year we go through the issues with the unpriced, unassigned, surrounding communities, exports, imports. We deal with that along with the other areas of unassigned values and so on. But this is something to really keep an eye on, because March 15th I went to an assessors meeting. The League of Cities and Towns, along with the assessors, sent out a letter to the governor opposing any changes, as it's going to affect our tax bills and we don't know. I'll give you an example. A 2015 Honda CR-V under the governor's proposal would come in at $670. Under the current state law, it comes on at $559. So there's a difference, where in 17, with Mattiello's immediate car tax relief, the bills were less. So if we sent out a $1,000 bill, they were getting a $900 bill, and they were happy because they saved $100. In this case, if we bill out per current state law, which I plan
Sending out
on,
a supplemental bill.
yeah, we'll be sending out more. So it's easier when they come in and you don't owe the money than to tell them, yeah, you owe an additional tax.
Now, another question on that, wasn't there like a $4 per vehicle that they
Oh,
had
yeah.
buried in there?
Yeah, that was on collector's end, where Kim sends blocks if they don't pay to the DMV, so they can't register vehicles. And Kim can touch on that, but I know it's something where in her budget that the town would pay to put those
We had to add
blocks.
something in the line item for that one.
Yeah, within Kim's budget, so we gotta keep a close eye on it, because even at the assessors meeting, back on the 15th of last month, there was one person says, oh yeah, it's gonna pass with this law, and nobody knows until it's passed and it's
When the
signed,
league
so.
sent the letter protesting that, they sent it to Mattiello
Yeah.
and Representative
General
Abney.
Assembly sent a letter too, because we're on schedule to phase out the car tax by 2023.
But they sent one to
They did.
Mattiello, did they send one to Mr. Abney, the chair of the finance committee?
You know, I'm not sure, but I'm sure at this point
Because he
everybody's,
is right on top of those numbers, that man is very good, so.
yeah. I think they know at the State House, I think we're gonna be in the same position as 2017, where it's the General Assembly wants one thing, you know, Raimondo wants another thing, so we'll have to wait and see what gets passed.
The House controls the money.
Yeah,
That's how we did it last year, so.
we'll have to wait and see. So again, second Tuesday in June, financial town meeting, so I have to keep a close eye on it, because I plan on certifying the rule shortly after financial town meeting.
Which
so-
you are required to do by law.
Right.
And I think the point of all this is that we hope that this town and others do not have to issue you supplemental tax bills. We hope not. because nobody wants to get a supplemental bill for $8.25 or $22 or whatever the case may be. And unfortunately, as Carrie tells us, nobody knows quite how it's gonna play out. So she's up against it.
30th.
We have to have a budget prepared to go before the financial town meeting. That's when we decide how much you're gonna be taxed. She has to move forward, and then if the figures don't come down, if it's an 11th hour and things get changed. So, as you probably have read, there's a back and forth between the governor and the House of Representatives and Speaker Mariello. So we don't know how it's gonna play out, but thank you.
We have
Is
to
there-
keep a close eye on it, but other
is
than
there
that, that's.
any other highlight, again, thank you for staying. This is
Yeah,
the
no problem.
youngest certified tax assessor in the state. So if you haven't met her, please come in and say hello. This young lady, that's so sexist. This young lady is so on top of her game. Thank you, Carrie.
You're welcome.
Any questions, anything else, Carrie, you wanted to?
That's it for now. I wish we can keep the vehicles.
She wishes she
For the tax
could.
revenue.
The buses.
Yeah.
Carrie,
I don't know.
thank you, good luck. Good luck. Thanks. And just very quickly, the other report that I pulled, because, do you want to list real quickly the things they've done? You want me to, you read, I read? This is a report that came from the Rural Land Trust Commission. They've been very busy, and let them highlight, this will be quick, and then we move on.
This, I had mentioned earlier that they had submitted a summary of their accomplishments for 2018, which I had mentioned was very comprehensive. I didn't expect to read the whole list, but I will right now.
Some of these, they're really
Yeah,
good.
but it says, some of the things they had done, one is creation of guidance documents designed to provide standard operating procedures related to the types of information requested from potentially interested landowners and how to evaluate and rank parcels potential acquisition by the trust. Another item was they were contacted by two separate landowners regarding potential acquisition of their land by the trust, including evaluation of the parcels using the guidance documents described above. Also, the participation in the Memorial Day Parade to raise visibility of the trust in the community was another endeavor by them. They also created a website, Facebook page, and email address for the trust. They created a Dropbox to store pertinent trust-related documents. They're high-tech. They all the members participate in the Rhode Island Land and Water Conservation Summit, which was held at URI, I think, a couple of weeks ago. Then submitted a working budget and operation of the trust within the budget requested. And they determined that the presence of easements on town property that would require periodic inspection and potential maintenance by the trust. They researched to complete this task included a review of land evidence, records, and conversations with the tax assessor and Department of Public Works. No easements requiring intervention by the town were identified. And finally, implementation of a full moon paddle in conjunction with the Wood Pawcatuck Water Association conducted during Rhode Island Land Trust Days. Over 30 people attended that event. So those are some of the things that they've been working on.
They're busy and good to have them in town. I think then we can move on to, I don't believe there are other reports we need to address. Ken, please, sorry, Ken.
Well, budget moves forward, so we're all set with that. But, I just wanted to bring up that you may or may not be aware that there are some new mobile food establishment regulations that Lynn has been receiving. So it looks like that the Department of Business Regulations is gonna force the town into either collecting fees one way or the other. And so we're gonna have to draft an ordinance.
For the state?
they'll get their share. And, so we discussed this issue months ago, and kind of left it up to the state to certify we weren't gonna charge for food trucks or events or anything. Not licensed them because they're already licensed by the state. Now the state is forcing it down to the local level, but they have all the permitting at the state level.
So we administer it, they collect the money. Is that how it works?
And it's gonna go through exactly the system that the inspectors are using, that they put in place to set up for further collections on different issues, so. We'll be drafting an ordinance, I think, soon. Work with Jim and then get something prepared to meet their guidelines. Public comments for the rules ended Friday, and they sent out their proposed rules Friday.
Guess
So
we
they're
knew
going
that was
forward.
going.
Right, yeah.
Guess I know how much attention they paid to any of the comments.
Yeah.
Ready to go.
So keep it posted, that's it.
Thank you, Ken. Well, and then moving to, if we could, other administrative issues, or any that the council wishes to bring up at this point? No. Hearing none, we'll move to communications. I just would like to very quickly address April communication number 24. It's the one from the Friends of the Public Library. They're asking if they could use the lot here on May 18th for their spring plant and baked goods sale. You perhaps have read their communication, and they're asking that we could confirm as a council their request for using the premises here. And they have done this here, I believe, for the last, several years. And I would move that we recognize, grant their request to use our parking lot on May 18th for a spring plant and baked goods sale. That's the Friends of the Exeter Public Library.
I'd second that motion, Mr. President.
Have they done this before?
Yes, they have, several times.
This is nothing new.
No, it isn't. And they used to do this at the library, but there's a visibility issue here. I believe they've indicated in the past, people driving by may more readily pull in. So, hearing no other comments, those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So voted. I removed item 29 from the communications list. This is a request, I don't know if it's a request, Steve, it's a notification. That you're doing some pole work, is this correct?
We're installing 2 new telephone poles and a guideline pole on Bay Schoolhouse Road. I've reviewed it, it's, the stakes are fine.
Good. I do note in the middle of the communication from National Grid, if this petition meets with your approval, please return an executed copy, and it's sent to the town of Exeter. So I suppose the people that have to approve it will be the town council, based on Steve's recommendation. So I move that we approve the petition presented by National Grid and Verizon.
Second.
Motion is made and seconded, discussion, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
So voted, thank you. Dan?
Number 25, the letter from Asa Davis requesting removal of concrete barriers blocking his land. His engineer's here tonight, because I got an email also, this original print. And Mr. Dowdell, is he still here? No, he left. Because I don't, when he did this copy, I don't know if the scale's correct. It looks like it's probably blown up, you couldn't use a 1=50, so.
I don't think it is to scale.
No, okay.
But it is 51.9.
Because my question is, number one, why was it blocked off? Because, and this is gonna come back at Evans Slocum Road too, because once I saw this one, this is kind of, there's a lot of my questions with Mr. Dowdell when he left. This was a temporary cul-de-sac, and normally why these, I call them a dog leg, that's what we call them in the trade, that's put in for the next property owner, so he's not cut off from his property. So this is an access, it's a right-of-way, it's a public right-of-way into that lot, correct?
It's not a built road, though. It's not a public road.
It's a public right-of-way.
It's owned by the town of Exeter.
Yeah.
It is not a road, though.
But he can access his property through that.
it still has to be, you can't excavate on public property. You know what I'm saying? You can't just go put a driveway through town property. That's private use of public property. And that's what Mr. Davis did.
When this
And
was
anybody in the past that used it also did the
Okay,
same.
but my question, when this originally was, this was done back in the 90s, was that cut to that lot line back then? Yeah. But right, what's there now, a 10 or 12 foot wide path?
25,
So he cannot, you won't move them barriers so he can get into his land?
he doesn't have street frontage with the town of Exeter, he only has a lot line abutment. Exeter property and Davis property
We've got a
abut.
50-foot right-of-way, public right-of-way,
Public property, yes,
that he can use to access his land.
but you can't dig on it, and you can't
He can't-
dump illegally on it, you
He
can't
can't
put
drive
trees
on
on it.
public land that is a road?
I'd
That's
like
not
to
what he
speak to
did.
that if I could.
Excuse me.
Sure.
Because the other thing when I look at it, that's RU4 zoning. That's why I asked if it was to scale. RU4 zoning, you have to have 300 foot of frontage for this lot and this lot over here.
I'm well aware, yes.
So, this is gonna end up in court, and the town's gonna lose, is the way I look at it. Because you're denying him the right, I don't know, when Estate Drive was built back in the 90s, I don't know if it was all one entity that owned that back piece and this, I'm not gonna go sit in there and do a title search.
No, it's a stub.
That's what I'm saying, it could have been the same owners owned these two, they could have subdivided that.
That was a planned stub for future development of the next large possible property.
Which he's using to access. Now,
He
he's
has
got
to, in order
equipment.
to use the stub, you'll have to put the road in. That's why it's a temporary cul-de-sac. This was all done by the planning board, approved by the planning board, approved by the town council at the time.
Can someone get me all the meeting minutes for the approval on this road when it was finally accepted?
I gave my entire file that Public Works had to do.
Because that's what, I don't think you can just go block somewhere when he's got equipment in there now that he can't even get it out, so.
But if you're excavating on public property without a permit, and you're trespassing, you're illegally dumping, and you're removing town property, which are trees and everything else, that is what the problem is. It's not that he,
I'm
anything
gonna take a
else.
ride down there the next day or two to see exactly what's there. But can he drive back and forth on that property if them Jersey barriers are moved?
only because of what he did to the property.
But he can drive back and forth. Now, the man has equipment in there, he can't get out.
If there's
Because
no
you blocked
road
it.
built, and it's woods, and his frontage is on Route 102, by the way, yes.
But you
His
have to
legal
drive through a river to
It's
get.
his legal frontage, all right? It's irrelevant on what he would have to do. All right, that stub was put in for future development. He can, yes, he can use it. Yes, he can go to the planning board and submit a plan, engineered, remove the temporary cul-de-sac, move the road, install the road, put the cul-de-sac in on his property. He has all the frontage he needs, and use of the town's property, done by the regulations. It's very simple, all right? If you want to allow him to use public property for private use, then you have to give that permission to everybody else that would want to use public property for private use. It's not a curb cut because he doesn't have a curb. It's 280 feet approximately, give or take a few, from the street, the curb line, to his property, through town property. All right? It was never a built street. Yes, the road is there for a future street as a stub by subdivision regulations. Okay? That's what it is. It's a stub. He can use it if he does it the right way through the proper
So
channel.
right now, we're not gonna move these Jersey barriers so he can get that stuff out of there.
I can't move the Jersey barriers because then he's endangering the town of Exeter as a whole. They go in there, they break something, they sue the town, like a leg. We don't need that. That's why that public property for the safety of the town, that's why they're there, to protect the town of Exeter.
I'm gonna disagree with you on that.
No, you have that.
I'm gonna leave it at that. It's gonna end up in court, let the attorneys decide, but like right now, he's used it. I've seen the letters where Hall used that back 15 years ago.
They're just admitting to trespassing just like he is, realistically. If there wasn't a road there, what are they doing? They're using public property without a permit, without a street, without anything. The frontage for those two lots that you referred to was approved by the planning board and approved by the town council at the time. Now, I can't speak to what their opinion was at the time because that was them. But they voted to approve it as is, and to keep it as a rural section of land between the temporary cul-de-sac and the next piece of property, if it was ever developed. And they had, that way the developer would have the access to develop that property. That's what the stub was intended for. It's very clear.
Until he cut the trees down there, the biggest vehicle you could go through there with is a trailer or an ATV.
I'll just leave it at that.
I don't think a deer could get down his run. It was nothing there. It was all woods for the last 20-something years.
Okay, Dan, okay, you made points. Are there other communications that were called? I don't recall that there were.
That's it.
Hearing none, the next item on the agenda, item 14, concerns an executive session. We do need to move into executive session for reasons actually regarding item D, personnel issues, legal relations. I don't think Council, I'm recommending we go into executive session under 2 items listed here: personnel issues, legal relations, transfer station, lease, and purchase. I have a motion to enter executive session.
I'll make that motion.
Motion made, seconded. Those in favor, say aye. Opposed? So voted.
David?
So we can't access the